Hello and welcome, I'm Peasant, and today going to do something a bit different. It's a principles playthrough, so it's not an over-explain, but what it is an attempt to make a playthrough video that will actually be useful to pretty new players without over-explaining. So I'm not going to explain every last thing, but I am going to try and bring it back to principles as much as possible. We'll see how this goes. This is my first attempt. It might take a whole ton of takes. We have our opening explore, which is in the sands. And I've even turned down the animation speed as well. Wow, wow, look at these guys. Glacial. Okay, that is pretty glacial. And I do realise that my intro videos that are like super speed, probably not that useful. So this is actually part of set up this opening explore. And now what does this tell us? We know that this round there's going to be a town built here and a town built here. So then we know next round there's going to be a ravage in here for 6 damage, which is 1 + 3 + 2, or a 3 damage one in here. Now as River, we don't start with any defend cards. Okay. We also have a game plan as River. It's the only spirit that really has such a natural game plan, and that is to trigger this level of the innate, so the 3rd tier, and do 2 damage to each invader in a land adjacent to a sacred site, which is 2 presence, 2 or more presence even. So we can kind of see here that we might struggle to do something about these lands. However, we've got lots of tools in our toolkit. Before I forget to mention this, you'll notice this 3 sun, 4 water, and an earth, and our starting cards actually match those elements perfectly. So that's a good thing to know, and that's why I'm going to open the way I probably am. There are a few ways to go with this spirit. I typically hit the bottom track and get to this reclaim 1 as soon as possible. We will be earning energy from Boon of Vigor and from River's Bounty, which is why we can afford to skip this top track. This isn't the only way to play it, but this is how I like to play it. We've got a build here and a build here. Now we've got this very useful card. It's a slow card, but the useful thing about that is it means we can wait until after the invaders have done what they're doing before we use it. So it pushes up to 3 explorers or towns. We know they're going to build a town in here, so we can use Wash Away. We can play it in our spirit phase after we've picked our growth. And then when they build their town, we can then push these somewhere where they're not going to ravage on a subsequent turn and blight the island. So that's going to be a nice thing to do, turn 1. And River's Bounty is your fallback card. It's not exactly principles, but as River, this is very useful. You're moving Dahan around and gaining energy, and these elements are nice too for your innate. So, yeah. So this is kind of an opening. And we've got some presence to place here. The principle here is for most spirits, most of the time, you want to be placing as much presence as you can, because that's how you make your spirit more powerful. And in general, you want to be reclaiming as rarely as possible, because for most spirits, that reclaim is their weakest growth option. For example, so this, you get your cards back, great, but you're not placing any presence. Some spirits, their reclaim is even worse, proportional to their others. And some, their reclaim's okay, but we'll look at those in due time. So we've placed our presence here. We know that we've got a 6 damage ravage here next turn, right? Because they're going to build a town this turn, and then they're going to have an explorer, a town, and a city. We have no defend cards. We don't start with any as River. So 6 damage, it's a lot. So we're probably going to let this land go, which is a very useful principle that will help you, especially once you start ramping up your difficulty. So I'm going to just plan to let it go. I'm not going to do anything about it. I don't have any cards to do anything about it. Not only that, but if I'd started trying to deal with this by maybe gaining a card that might help or scrambling around, I kind of deviate from my strongest game plan. And it's just not worth it. When we've got a nice solution for this land here, you'll notice that we start with 3 blight and a blight card. This might be, if you're playing with a physical copy, you might not be aware of this errata that adds an extra blight to the card. You might not be aware. So we want to Wash Away so that this explorer and this town get pushed out of here and then aren't going to blight this turn. We're ignoring this land. Remember, this was my kind of general place where I like to... This is my kind of default. Oh, I don't know what to play as River. I'll play that. And you'll notice we have our massive flooding, which is another opportunity to push. Now with River, I like to have a couple of lands. I like to have a land on the coast, typically this middle one, which I at some point will smash with massive flooding. And I like to have an inland land that I at some point will smash with massive flooding. This 2 damage to each invader is enough to kill everything except cities, but then you can finish off the cities, or in fact kind of preemptively do the damage in the fast phase with flash floods here. So that's kind of the overall plan, but these are slow powers, so we can wait and see what this explore card is before we decide what we do with them. Okay, so we're in the fast phase now. We're not doing it in the fast phase. So it's gone straight to the build. And yeah, we've got a town here and a town here. Fine. And then we have an explore. So we do know the possibilities. We know the possibilities. So we've got a wetland, explore. Okay. Okay, that's fine. So we had the idea that we could wash away in this land, so this town and this explorer wouldn't ravage in here next turn. But we might want to change our plan. I mean, we're not, but we might want to. We also now know, because this is in the slow phase, we didn't know when we chose these cards, that wetland is up next. So if we are going to push these, we don't really want to push them into the wetland, because then this town being in here would mean they build a city, and cities are harder for us to deal with. So we've got... So yeah, I think I'm going to push these into here. And remember, we've actually got massive flooding as well. So we can push an explorer or a city. We could do... This is a very important principle, which is preventing builds. Preventing builds is marvellous. You'll change your life. So... we've actually got 2 builds we could prevent. What I mean by that is the most straightforward way of preventing a build is there's an explorer, there's going to be a build next turn, and you just move or remove the explorer, and then there's no build. No build means no ravage. Now, adversaries will change this up, but we're not talking about adversaries now, all right? So we've actually got a choice. We could prevent the build in this land, or we could prevent the build in this land. And there's a few factors here. There's already a blight in this land. So if we were going to let a land go, which we probably won't, but we might have wanted to, we wouldn't want it to ravage in here, because that would then cascade, which would place an additional blight. So this is the option here. But this has Dahan in, and the Dahan could counterattack, but this double blight is probably something we want to avoid if we can. So let's wash away. We've got a few options here. We could... Pushing to the wetland is not great. Pushing to the jungle is kind of interesting, because then we're pushing it to the coast, which is often a good principle. If you can clear the inland so that there are no adjacent buildings, you can actually prevent explorers, which is even better than preventing builds. So that could be something we try and do. Wait a second, we might have an even better move. So what we could do is we could try and prevent explorers, which is very overambitious and probably not wise. No, we actually can't prevent any explorers. What I was thinking about doing is pushing this town into here and then pushing all this lot to the coast. But because there's going to be a build in one of these in before the explore, we can't actually prevent any explorers just because of the layout. But something to think about. But as you can see, there's often is a move. There often are more moves kind of hidden beneath the surface. So if you are, yeah, especially when you're learning, you might not necessarily want to rush. You might not necessarily want to rush those moves. So I have the idea with River that I'd like to have a coastal land that I push everyone to and destroy them. We can't really push cities easily, certainly not in base game. So probably this is going to be my coastal death lane. It's going to be unfortunate because it will have a blight in. That's not ideal, but... So the idea of pushing to this coastal land is less appealing. This is the ideal land to have as our land that we hit with this 2 damage to each invader effect, because it's adjacent to every other inland land. So I like the idea of pushing in here. Okay, so we could chain the flooding to push to here, so we could push an explorer and then push everything, but we're actually just going to push into this land here. So... And River's unusual in that it has this it does have a built-in plan. Unlike a lot of them. Okay, now... So I could leave this, or I could leave this. Something to think about with these lands is that if it has fewer adjacencies, it's also a land you don't really want to blight, because if it then blights again, you've got less options. But doesn't matter too much. Not an over-explained peasant, remember? You said in the intro. So we've got River's Bounty, which is going to allow us to gather Dahan and then get an energy. So Dahan movement is one of the trickiest things in the game. actually, it turns out. But I think I would ideally have Dahan in here for a counterattack, for what I'd call a messy counter, which is where they build their town and then they ravage, but there are 2 Dahan in here and they get to fight back. We've only got 1 adjacent Dahan, so we're not going to satisfy this needing 2. And the energy is important here. We definitely want to make sure we do that. So I'm going to kind of try and partially satisfy that. I'm going to bring these over here, so maybe we can bring Dahan in here in future. It's not ideal, but the main thing we've gained here is the energy. Okay, that was our slow phase. And now we're into time passes. So that was the first round. We've decided to let this coastline go. We've cleared this land. We've prevented a build. That's not bad, eh? Not bad. And we now have a growth option. So remember the principle of placing presents. It's a good principle, I promise you. And with River, we have this particular thing where if we double place presents, we can get this reclaim 1, which gives us another useful turn. So I'm going to do that. A lot of the spirits do have what you might call openings that are kind of that don't change much, and others have got really kind of, they're much more reactive. That's just how it is. But yeah, so the early reclaim here is just don't do it, all right? So we've got 2 more presence placements to decide. We're trying to get this reclaim 1, and then we'll reclaim River's Bounty. You'll notice that Flash Floods cost 2. So it is expensive, but it will allow us to prevent a build in here, which is really nice. Okay. So we've got to also work out where to place these presents. So a nice principle is to have targeting everywhere on the board that you want. So at the moment, we've got a sacred site in here and a sacred site in here. So we are adjacent to a sacred site on everywhere, on everywhere, apart from here. So there's part of me that wants to make a sacred site in here. So place 1 presence and then place this presence in there as well. The other thing to think about, particularly with River, is where we want to use River's Bounty. So we'll be using this to gather and position Dahan. So that's the other real thing I'm considering here. So we don't have any defend cards, but we could think about positioning for a kind of a dirty counter, as they say. Something else that's interesting is that we could just load up so many Dahan in here that it doesn't matter if they build a city. Currently this is 6 damage. So if this Ravage took place now, these guys would all die and none would survive. But if we were to use River's Bounty, gather in another Dahan from here, and then breed another, they would actually live and counter. That's what you'd call the dirty Ravage. It's not nice. Sometimes you've got to do it. But that doesn't influence our presence placement here. It doesn't influence it. So yeah, we don't have any other 0 range things to consider. So I think I will go with this plan of making a sacred site down here. So now my whole island can be affected by my innate. And we've got a choice of reclaim here. Now we've only got 2 energy after we get our income, so we can't forward wash away anyway. Unless we substituted it in, but River's Bounty gains us energy. And we don't have an obviously super good use for wash away right this turn. Okay, so I'm going to grab River's Bounty. And you will notice we now have three plays and 3 cards to use. And, well, would you look at this? We've got the second tier on innate, which is also pretty great. It's also pretty great. And we've actually got... Yeah, okay. So we'll make those choices. I'm trying to shave some time in this video by just skipping through this a little bit. Okay, so we actually have Flash Floods here. So does a damage, or on the coast does 2 damage. Now, we could use it here to prevent this build. However, preventing builds is good, but we have this ability here that's going to do 2 damage as well. I mean, we could use this in the slow phase to deal with whatever this explore card is. Now, we do know what this is. It's either going to be, well, we know it's either mountain or jungle. The other alternative is we could use Flash Floods on the coast to just destroy a town, sorry. This is not really a decision, so I'll just do it. So let's play... You could go either way. We're nowhere near getting a fear card. In fact, we've not generated any fear yet. We're just chilling out for the moment. Let's go with preventing the build. We could gain a fear and destroy a town. They're both valid, I would say. They're both acceptable. Because we couldn't prevent that ravage anyway. So we just have to accept it. We have no builds. And then we have the explore. It's a mountain explore. That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, so you notice here, we do have River's Bounty, but notice this. If they build here next turn and then ravage the turn after, it will be that dirty ravage I was talking about. So it will be an explorer and a town versus 2 Dahan. So they will kill Dahan and injure another one, but the remainder Dahan will fight back and destroy the town, which is useful. It's useful, and that's something we need to factor in. Now, we've got the massive flooding here. So we could use massive flood. So because we made this sacred site here, we could target here and prevent this build altogether. That's reasonable. We could just do 2 damage and remove a town. The thing I'm thinking about is we're now at probably the first crossroads with this spirit. We've got 2 options. We can reclaim next turn. Well, we've got 3 options. We've got 2 that are accept. There's 2 main groups of options. We keep placing presence, or we can reclaim. Now, why is that even a choice? You're not going to have any cards next turn. Well, actually, I will get to reclaim a card, which is why this space is so powerful. One of the reasons. But I have an opportunity next turn, and that is if I can get to 4 plays, that means I've got the potential to use my innate, my massive flooding, because this is the only way I can get elements with this spirit in this situation is to have 4 plays. So if I go with one of these options, that's a possibility. We actually have next turn, because we prevented these builds, it's actually fine. There's going to be 2 ravages that don't happen. We're kind of in the clear there. So I think what I'm going to do is next turn. So it's good to plan. I'm going to probably go with this option to get the 4th play, so that we have a little mini turn with a couple of cards from here, and then we can reclaim and hopefully do our tier 3 innate and clear this land. But it might have blighted. It might have blighted, but that's fine. A bit of blight is good for you. So we'll prevent this. So I've gone with just preventing that instead of having a messy counter, because the longer the island's healthy, the better, really. It is true in... We may as well set this up as well. Do we want to do this? Yeah, let's do this. Because it becomes more the case with events and stuff in the game, but you still... Yeah, this kind of makes some sense. God, I'm trying to do a beginner friendly thing. I'm just gibbering. Okay, so we're back to the power phase, and we have no cards in hand, but we want to get our 4th play. No ravages to worry about this turn. There will be a build in here, but that's fine. So they're going to build a city, so they have a total of 10 damage, which will kill all of these Dahan. But we can always make more Dahan. We're the only spirit in base game that can easily make extra Dahan. So we have a presence to place. So we've got sacred site targeting everywhere. We might want to still have a presence in here. I'm actually going to do this. This presence is going to get destroyed, possibly in the next ravage, but that's fine. We're going to gain a power card. Now, we have, as River, we really like our start cards because they enable us to use our top tier of our innate. So not likely to want a major. We kind of got one built in, so I'm going to go looking at a minor power. Okay, now we really care about elements as this spirit. So why is that? Because if we have the right elements, then we can repeatedly use this innate without reclaiming. Reclaiming, remember, is a weaker turn. If you can get that 5th play at some point, get the extra energy income, we're just more powerful. So by going for cards that have these elements on, then we're more likely to be able to have repeatedly strong turns. Incidentally, in the meantime, if we get a water element, we'll get this push, which is useful. That will prevent a build. So we are quite heavily incentivized to get something that does have water on it. Even just for the short term, because we know there's going to be an explore, and we can just prevent a build, make things easy for ourselves. So I'm quite inclined to go with Call to Tend or Song of Sanctity. Now, can we use either of these? Well, Call to Tend, we actually need to Harn in the land to target it. So we actually don't have somewhere we can use it, unless we also play River's Bounty and bring some to Harn in. I'm not sure I really want to do that, because I'd rather, if I'm going to River's Bounty, I'd rather River's Bounty in this mountain, so that we can have a messy counter there. Though we don't really want to do that either. Now, here's something that's interesting. I recently did a minor powers video. A lot of people were standing hard for Quicken the Earth struggles. And here's why. When they build a city here, which they will do this turn, they'll have a total of 10 damage on that Ravage, which is huge, but not for Quicken. So I'm actually going to take Quicken there this time, because it just means that we'll defend and then we'll counterattack and we will clear this land, which is wonderful. Not only that, but we'll clear it in the Ravage, which means that these buildings will not be available to explore from. Now, we're going to by not picking a water card, we're not going to be able to use our innate this turn, but this is so valuable. What this also enables us to do is for us to have a very low-key turn and then hit with our innate next turn. So we'll go with Quicken. And again, not an over-explain. This has nice elements, but the fact this is unreliable is a bit gross, because it doesn't necessarily do what you want it to do, because you don't control where the Explore goes. But yeah, so I'm going to go with Quicken. And Defend is... So let's talk about principles. Defend is amazing. It's very, very good. Now, the fact we're going to go with Quicken next turn instead of our innate, and why am I saying instead? Because this crucially does not have the elements we want. It does not have the water that we need to get our top tier. So we'll be doing Quicken instead of doing our massive flooding. We've got to decide what to reclaim. So we've got a bit of an odd turn this turn, because we don't care about this, because we can't, these are unattainable now. We're still going to want energy for next turn, so probably River's Bounty is the right call. Yeah, I think that is still the right call. Yeah, I mean, this is your default. If you're playing as River and you're not really sure what to do, you get River's Bounty. Though Wash Away is also incredibly powerful, because we can use that to prevent a build, which does just keep things simple for us. I'm actually going to do that. I think. No, because here's something. So to use our innate, we need 2 energy, 3 energy. So I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with these two. Oh, no. We're not doing this turn. Yeah, we'll have lots of energy. So we have a very low-key turn this turn. There's no point in playing this turn. We'll just be wasting our energy. So we've got a mountain build, which is fine. We've kind of got a plan for that. And we have a wetland explore. Okay. So yeah, the wash away probably would have been better, actually. Yeah, I think actually wash away would have just been a better move. Damn it, peasant. So we'll just multiply these and gain an energy. And we are back to the growth phase. So, we have a Ravage here, but we have a big, juicy defend card. And now I'm thinking, Now I'm thinking... There's actually 10 attack. We can't push anyone else in there, apart from explorers, without adding more attack that we can defend. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do a setup turn to finish off the game with this. Maybe next turn. So we are going to get to reclaim a card. So what I think I'm going to do this turn is reclaim Wash Away, probably. And we'll gain a power card. Now, why am I gaining a power card? It's so that I have a bit more of an effective turn this turn, really, before we reclaim. That's the general gist of what I'm doing. So, and oh yeah, here's another principle. Look at your card first, because it might influence where you place your presence. Okay, so we've got this, which has perfect elements for us. And, in this case, this 2 defend in each of its lands, so that's lands where I have presence, is going to mean it defends in both of these lands, which is pretty nice. Now, that said, Gift of Constancy is also really nice. It's extra energy and gets us our cards back, but we're probably going to reclaim next turn anyway. We don't need this turn. This here is more energy, but this Delusions of Danger will push an Explorer, which does look like not a lot for an energy, but that prevents a build. And we can actually push into here and be fine, because this is a 10 damage Ravage as it stands. We could push an extra one in there for 11 versus 10, which is enough. One Dahan will get injured, but we'd still clear the land. So, I might go with this. Alternatively, we could just go with this and destroy the town that's put in there. We've got options, and actually all of these are decent. Gift of Constancy is a wonderful card, but we don't really need to use it. We're going to be at 5 actions, though. I think the value of this is pretty good. I think I like the idea of Delusions of Dangering here, because we're going to be able to clear this entire inland area. Okay. Though Encompassing Ward is nice too. Yeah, I think I think actually all of these are conceivably pretty good. I'm going to go with this. We're going to go with the preventing builds idea, and I'm going to go with getting the 5th action. We're going to spend 2 energy this turn, so we'll have 3 next turn. We'll have enough to do this. And the 5th action will free us up to do this these things in addition, though we don't actually need to do this next turn. Actually, maybe we don't do that. I'm thinking actually that I'd be better off reclaiming Wash Away this turn. So actually, none of the... Oh yeah, we'll go with Gift of Constancy. This costs us 0 energy. The fact it costs 0 energy is glorious. It's tricky trying to pitch the level. Oh, how much must I say? So this Gift of Constancy here is giving us a bit of an energy boost that means that I'm not so worried about playing Wash Away this turn, because this is a card that costs an energy rather than being a card like my River's Bounty or Boon of Vigor that would be granting me energy. But this Gift of Constancy will give me 2 energy. The fact we get to keep a card neither here nor there, because we plan to reclaim next turn. Okay, so this course is in the slow phase. We could push the town, the Explorer from here or here. So Gift of Constancy on ourselves. We will defend 10 in there. And there we have the Ravage. The Good News Ravage. So that's a lot of damage in there. Lot of damage. Look at that slow motion fear. And we've got ourselves a fear card. Wow. And now we have the builds. So we're going to wash away those builds. Probably. It turns on our explore. It's a jungle explore. Okay. Okay. Right then. So we've got the wash away choice, and actually you'll notice we have a few options here. I think I'm going to prioritize preventing this blight falling on this blight, because then we'll have an unhealthy island. So I'm going to push these somewhere. We've actually cleared this land. So I'm going to push into this land, which is my designated coastal land of death. Designated. The nice thing, of course, about having these five actions now is that we're much more free to just slip one of these in. Okay, we can reclaim one from Consti, but it just doesn't matter because we want to smash this land this turn. So we are going to reclaim now. We've actually got quite a lot of energy, but I very much favour minor powers here. We could think about a major if that's what you're into. But the beauty of going for another minor power here is that we are kind of on the cusp of being able to play our top tier of our innate 2 turns in a row without reclaiming, which is valuable. Because what that's going to mean is more presence, more energy, and being able to play more cards is better. Ooh, we've got some good stuff here. All right, so I really like Entrancing Apparitions. Defend 2 is kind of not really why I like it. If there are no invaders present, gather up to 2 explorers. You can use this to prevent 2 builds, which is pretty immense. So if I target this wetland here, we'd be dragging Explorer from here and from here, and neither of them would build. That's pretty good. This is a funky card. Drift is a nice defend card, but this is preventing 2 builds. I'm going to prioritize that. Rain of Blood is one of my favorite cards, but not relevant here. Again, I don't know. I need to try and work out what the balance of explanation should be. So we're going to definitely squeak this in if we can. And the beauty of the 5th action, it means we don't have to be that precise to get this. You'll notice that this has water, air, and moon. Okay. Now, you actually need your elements to coincide pretty well if you're only using 4 plays to get these. And as this one only has water on, if we only had 4 plays, this might be hard to get this threshold. But as we've got 5, it should be pretty easy. So for example, this has water that we want and mountain that we want. So now if we just use 3 water air cards, we should be okay, which is actually this, and this. So we should get that tier 3, and we'd be able to clear this sands this turn. Now, we have this Ravage here, but we do have this Defend 10. Should take care of it. And I think if I'd been playing more wisely, we might have somehow ended up with Dahanan there. So we're going to... yeah, this is looking like a good turn. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, by the way. Because I am trying to make content that's useful for beginning players. And it's been a while since I was a beginning player. So with this Flash Floods, this is in the fast phase, but my Massive Flooding is in the slow phase. So I kind of need to pip a damage on the city in the fast phase, and it will still be there when we get to the slow phase. So it can be a bit funky though. If you've got a build here that's building the city, you can't actually pip it with your Flash Floods, which is inconvenient. So we'll quicken the Earth Struggles in here and defend 10, and we'll Entrancing Apparitions in here to prevent these builds, which is super nice. Okay, and we actually have a fear card now. Wow. Each player may push an explorer into a land with more buildings than the land it came from. Okay, so... well, as we are going to be killing everything in this land here, this is a fairly straightforward choice. We'll push it in there and we'll kill it in the slow phase with Massive Flooding. We have a Ravage. It's a shame we don't have Dahan in there, but... see, no jungle builds. And we have an Explore. It's a coastal lands. So yeah, Dahan, if you can use defend cards with Dahan, it is by far the most effective or efficient damage in the game. You can do a lot of damage for very little kind of energy and play cost if you can do that. So here's the problem. Because we used Quicken and Entrancing, we do have Wash Away as part of our toolkit, but it's okay. All right, so we'll do this, and we will clear this land altogether. So the only town we have left is in this wetland here. But the thing, part of the problem with preventing this many builds is that we don't generate as much fear because we're not destroying so much stuff. It's not a bad problem to have. So we're 4 fear away from Terra 2. Once we get to Terra 2, we can win by just destroying all the buildings. We actually don't have any coastal presence, so I can't drag any Dahan into the coast. That's probably a misplay as well. Let's drag some Dahan into here, so that if we do counterattack here at some point, we can... If we do defend in here in a Ravage, we can clear these out. Okay. So that was our slow phase. And we are into the growth phase. So we've got a Ravage here. Now this is nice. It's a 1 damage Ravage against the lone Dahan. With no events in the game, this is guaranteed going to be cleared. As is this. So that's pretty nice. We have... these are going to clear and there's going to be no build. We're going to have an Explore, and it's the last tier 2, so we know it's going to be a mountain or a sand Explore. We know this. If we can clear this land, we could actually prevent any inland Explorers, which would be pretty nice. The fact we got this early Quicken that coincided with our cluster of Dahan has meant that we're kind of a bit ahead of the game here. So given that there's going to be no build in here, we can actually destroy this town in the slow phase, but there will have been an Explore since. Okay, so if I can kill this in the fast phase, that'd be wonderful. Now, other cards in my hand, actually we could kill it in the fast phase with Quicken the Earth Struggles doing 1 damage and then Flash Floods doing the other damage. Very inefficient. But who cares? Who cares about inefficiency? I don't. Love a bit of inefficiency. So, the beauty of destroying this town is that then the only Explorers that happen on this sand or mountain would be these ones here, because there'll be no adjacent buildings to these. So it's actually, although it's using 2 cards to solve 1 problem, it's also kind of preventing 2 Explorers, which is pretty nice. So I actually think I'm inclined to do that. So the Flash Floods, the Quicken are both here. We can't get both of them back, so we will reclaim. And for me, the way that I play River, the plays is what matters. Once I get the plays, that's fine. Don't need anything else. Other people play differently. The beauty, one of the many beautiful things about Spirit Island is the amount of variety in play styles. I wonder if I can actually just finish this. See, we could look at a major. You don't typically want majors as this Spirit. I'm actually going to stick with Minor Powers here. But that's stylistic choice. Right. So, I was hoping for... Okay, this is a damage power that we could use in here just to clear this land, but it's a slow power. We want to destroy this in the fast phase to prevent the Explorers. However, what we could do with this is we could go for winning in the slow phase. All right, so if we destroy this town, we're still on Terra 1. We have to clear everything to beat our opponent here. But what we could do... damn it. We could use this to mop up a little bit. Because we have the River's Bounty, we are kind of moving Dahan around a fair degree. But I probably should have just stuck to the main game plan here. Okay, so I am going to try and clear this town. And it's because it's principled, all right? So we're going to destroy and prevent 2 Explorers. These guys are going to clear themselves. So at the end of the fast phase, there's going to be these 2 explorers. These guys are about to will die in the Ravage. So before these would be dead, then there's just these 2. If I can call to bloodshed, we can kill this last one in the slow phase. And then we've just got this one left and the 2 that explore here and here. So if we can trigger our innate and a better trigger than that, so we actually do like this, that's another 2 damage and a push. This might just be a really ham-fisted way of doing this. Can we generate fear? We don't have any fear generating cards explicitly. And the nice thing is, except we don't need the top tier on our innate anymore because of that big defend early. Yeah, I think this will do. God, it's tricky trying to get the amount of explaining right. So we're going to destroy this town. And that is preventing exploring here or here. Okay, we do have a fear card. Each player chooses a different land with Dahan. Invaders take 1 damage there. Oh, well, okay. That does help us. These guys are going to die in the Ravage anyway. Sorry, this guy's going to die in the Ravage, not this one. Wow, I've made a few errors here. Might not be up to standard. Might have to do another recording. Okay. Okay, so now we have coastal build and the mountain explorer. So we didn't get a mountain explorer in here because we destroyed this town. And the fact it is a mountain explorer means that our enemies are in only 2 places. So if we could generate 2 fear and destroy this town for an additional fear, we would just win now. We would just win. And we can't actually duplicate, we can't make another Dahan in here because there's no presence of ours in there. But we can wash away. The wash away is also solving a problem that probably doesn't matter, which is this coastal ravage we've got incoming. And then we can River's Bounty and drag these in. We still don't have quite enough to we don't have quite enough to finish this, I don't think. So damn it, Jim. We should be able to finish it next turn. Promise. But yeah, this is... River is very powerful. And we have the massive flooding here. And probably I've done a few things wrong. Got a bit too distracted by the joy of having 5 plays, probably. Okay, so this turn we've got a single explorer. We have no ravage that matters. We have no build. There will be an explorer. So if you kill this guy in the fast phase, we win, right? So let's just do that, shall we? Let's just do that. We do have a minor power to look at, and let's just look at that. Oh, voracious growth is... So none of these are actually that ideal for us. Nature's Resilience is just a really good card, and the Blight Removal is very handy in closer games than this. So without further ado, we will Flash Floods to finish this off. There it is. So we completely cleaned the island. And that was my attempt at a principles playthrough. So trying to bring it back to principles. Try not to go into too much detail because I know that's just not necessarily helpful for newer players. I might not, this might not even make it onto YouTube. I'm going to watch it back myself and see if it's good enough. Anyway, if you like the video, and if you have any comments or questions about Spirit Island, I read everything, I try and answer everything. But if you do have something that's about a particular moment in the video, please use a timestamp so that I can find it and answer it effectively. All right, until next time.